Okay, it being 6 o'clock, I'm going to call the Coos Bay City Work Session to order. I want to point out that online we have Councilor Matthews and President DeNovo. Councilor Kilmer will be joining us shortly. And we're going to start with public comment. Does anyone have any public comment tonight?
No public comment.
Okay, thanks, Christine. Moving on to the review of upcoming City Council and URA board action items. We're going to hear a presentation regarding the future of city timber sales from James.
Yeah, I can introduce. This is James Kirkpatrick. He's a forester with Stunster Engineering. He has been assisting the city for several years now, conducting timber sales and providing his expertise with respect to forestry and the management of our timberlands. And so he's going to speak to it way more intelligently than myself, so I'll turn it over to him, but we're here to answer questions.
Yeah, so I'm James with Stunster Engineering and Forestry. I've been kind of doing these timber sales for the last 10 years for you guys, doing one every couple of years. And we're kind of getting to the point where we're kind of running out of this merchantable timber to harvest. I got one more upcoming after the current 2025 sale that we're currently doing, which is in red on the map that's been passed around. And that's up there to the north, and that's kind of the last of that. It's like 80-year-old timber that we've been harvesting over the last 10, 15 years, and now we're kind of getting into that next rotation of younger stands, which is probably going to go into like a 45 to 55-year-old rotation. If you wanted to keep going the 80-year-old route, it's just going to be longer time periods between these timber sales, just because we don't, or my opinion, to do timber sales every other year. So that's kind of where we're at, and I guess at this point I'll just take questions if you have them.
So the city has conducted approximately 14 timber sales, correct?
Yeah, 14 or 15, probably since the early 90s. Yeah.
And how much revenue does that bring in?
It's kind of varies. It depends on the market in the period in which. And so traditionally what happens is we put bids out and the folks bid on that and they're beholden to that bid regardless of what happens in the market. So it depends on what the market looks like, and it's been several hundred thousands to 5 or 6, through the years when we had some really strong markets. Recently, not quite as hefty. It has traditionally paid for larger purchase items that we just don't have, that cash readily available. It's been a source for our police vehicles, which we know have to be rotated on a regular basis because we use them every day at pretty high intensities. It has funded building kind of facility projects and things like that over the years. So it's a significant source for us, but we also want to be really thoughtful about how we're managing that moving forward. We today get to carry some legacy from the folks who made those decisions earlier on, and so we're going to have to maybe rethink that. And so appreciate, some of this kind of opportunity to help this newer team on how to manage, the timber we have in a different way.
Yeah, right. And I'm newer in my position too, and I don't, whoever the employees before me too, they had different ideas and different plans. So it's just, this is just kind of the situation we're in right now. But I guess, I got one we can do in 2027 if the city would like, and then the next one probably is not going to be ready until 2032 to 2035, kind of just depending on how it grows. And then after that, there's nothing really till I'm looking at like 2042. So it's really 2 sales left for the next 15 years is kind of what I'm looking at currently. And then just kind of some long-term thinking after those 15 years, say 2042 to 2045, in order to do a sale every, I'm looking at like every 3.5, 4 years after that, 2042, 2046. There's a lot of stands out there that are 20 to 25 years of age that kind of need to be thinking about getting thinned. And that is a cost. There's no revenue from that. But if you want kind of consistent harvest, in the long term after in the 2040s, 2050s, these thinnings are going to help out in a big way to do that. Mm-hmm. But if you didn't want to do it, it's not 100% necessary if you didn't want to do it. It's just gonna have to wait longer. Nature will kind of take its course and thin itself out, and natural selection and all that, but it's, you're really looking 25, 30 years down the road, kind of at that point, and then a harvest every 5, 6 years at that point. So it just kind of makes a difference in that regard, and kind of, I guess, depends on when you want to see revenue, and if you want consistent revenue, or if you want to kind of do it all at once later down the road, every 2 years, we can wait till 2045 or something, and then do it one every 2 years at that point. But then you're going to run out again, so it's just kind of just going to be this repeated cycle.
How do we maintain the best stewardship of the land? And yes, you're saying that there's going to be a cost to thin, which we probably don't have money to do that.
Sure.
So how do we reduce fire risk while also preserving what we're going to need down the road for funding?
I mean, just the general location of the property, it's not a high fire risk area, being this close to the coast. But if we wanted to reduce it without thinning, just having better access into some of these stands overall, if we can just open up roads, and so we can so we can get equipment in there if something did happen. On the PCT units map I provided there's the 2 stands I have out on the west side there. Like, those roads really aren't drivable or accessible at this point, and it'd be nice to at least open up those roads if something were to happen, so we can get equipment in there and kind of react quickly. But kind of without thinning, the fire risk is just going to be what's going to be.
I want to open it up to other questions, and I see that there's quite a bit of overlap, obviously, with the water board property.
Yes.
I'm curious what kind of coordination happens with the water board.
They're basically in the loop on every piece of operation that we do out there. I kind of inform Matt. We do maintenance rock or planning or these sales, and I let them know every time any operator comes in and out of there and what to expect and what kind of equipment's run in there. So he's very in the loop, I'd say. Yeah.
Anyone online? Welcome, Councilor Cumberland.
I had a question, so I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying in the and also reviewing the memo. So we basically have 2 more cuts that we can do following the current schedule, where we do that every 2 to 3 years. And then following that, you're recommending that we pause for 10 years just because we don't have the trees aged appropriately. And what I'm hearing you also say is if we thin it, then in the future, we will have better harvest, but we're just going to have to wait 10 years until we can go into a cadence of receiving these revenues or doing these cuts every 2 to 3 years. Is that correct?
Most of it's correct. I would say we have the 2027 sale will be kind of in line with the next 2 years, but then after that, we can't there won't be another one for at least 5 or 6 years. I'm looking at that 2032 to 2035. So it's going to be a little longer in between that second harvest. And then after that, yes, I do recommend waiting the 10 years before cutting again, but then during that time to do some PCTs to prepare for after those 10 years to do basically a consistent harvest every 3-4 years at that point. I don't think we'll ever really be able to go back to the 2-year, a harvest every 2 years, just because of the amount of acres that we're kind of working with and the size of the clear cuts in the past. There is an option to reduce the size of the clear cuts so we can get more in there, but then the revenue's going down and all your costs will bump up because that's going to be extrapolated over a smaller area, just higher cost. And these bigger sales get more contractors interested in it. They want a good chunk of work to do. So we can't, the 2-year thing would be possible, but then you're just going to hit this same scenario we're in again, where you have to have another 10-year gap later down the road. It's just going to be the same cycle. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I guess my question now is for Nicole. Nicole, knowing this, I would assume the next cut, we would just plan to use those dollars for potential thinning. Is that what you and the team have talked about?
So the first part of this was just to get kind of this general refocus of how we maybe might handle our timber moving forward in front of you folks, and then also part of what we do when we get to budget, right? We've been counting on these dollars. We're just used to this money. We have been talking about what we do as an alternative. And we've found some ways to kind of work through that. We're still struggling with a couple of items, but I think, as we move forward, that is going to be a conversation. How do we keep these dollars to help us better prepare for those future cuts? And a piece of that is thinning, right? So we have a better selection when that time comes around. So these are first conversations in preparation for making some really maybe change of plans moving forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Matthews?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there is a coordination with the adjacent landholders, one being the water board, two being probably the tribes, that kind of minimizes the investment to access some of these plots, or maybe I don't know if there's a forestry practice that like looks at how to harvest timber with regards to adjacent land ownership that makes the most sense for fire danger or for tree growth. I don't know if is that a way that you end up coordinating with, like, so let's say the water board or the tribes, or is that mostly you just look at specific tracts of land and age and you just go through and take it out and move on from there? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think I get your question. So, like, we use, we have a road system agreement with the water board, so we use a lot of the loop road, and then we build our own roads into these stands that haven't. A lot of these stands are, I'll kind of backtrack a little bit. A lot of these stands, these 80-year-old stands that we're in now, don't really have any road access. So we've been building new roads into them all as part of the timber sale, and most of them are dirt. And they should be there permanently, and then we should have a kind of a permanent access system at that point. But the loop road through the water board is the main access for kind of to access all these timber sales. We haven't really used the tribe or kind of worked with them really. I haven't, we can kind of get to everything we need without going through them. Not saying that we can't use them in the future. But it's just, that loop road is kind of the main access is that we use. If that answers your question.
Partially, that would be like part of it. The other part would be, is there any advantageous forestry practices that you harvest in like a certain pattern or, in relationship to like adjacent land plots, or is it mostly you just look at certain sections and they were cut 30 years ago, and so you harvest it, and is it just like a crop rotation kind of thing, or is there any kind of, I guess this is more forestry science, so it's probably deeper than we need to go, but I was just wondering if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think I got you there. So it's, the Forest Practices Act, we're limited to a clear-cut size of 120 acres. So we can't exceed that without getting green up. It's called green up around that area. So the timber sale would be adjacent to the one you'd be cutting, has to be 4 years older, or the trees have to be free to grow, basically. So we kind of move around the water board harvesting so that never comes into conflict. So we've been kind of going to the north end and going to the south end, so that 120 acres never really comes into play. And so harvesting every 2-3 years, like what we've been doing. It's and kind of moving around the watershed in that regard. That's kind of what we think about, is that clear cut size, and just kind of we don't want to stick all the clear cuts at once in one spot, and then kind of pigeonhole ourselves in the future. So we try to spread them out as much as we can.
Okay, that I appreciate you kind of clarifying that, because I'm not in the forestry sciences, but that totally makes sense and kind of helps me understand how the layout of the lot parcels that are selected. So thank you for explaining that.
Yep. And then at that point too, it's also an age thing. So we try to take care of the oldest units first and kind of work our way down in age classes. So that's the other criteria, I guess, to that question.
Got you. I also have one more question that I just thought of. The water board, I'm on the water board myself. We came under some fire for, some of the slash burning that was happening. Uh, and we had some weird weather patterns that caused, there's some wind shifts that brought more smoke into the downtown area than was anticipated. And so those kind of issues are something that's now on my radar. Like, how are we dealing with our slash piles? Do we have like I don't know, the water board started investigating some kind of chipping system. I don't know if that's in part of your purview or not, but just wondering if we have a management practice for the residual slash.
Yeah, so it's, burning's been kind of our go-to. That's kind of all we've ever done. We have to wait for some sort of an east wind generally. But, I mean, as you know, it's the wind swirling. You never get the right, sometimes it'll move west for an hour and town gets a little smoky. So it's not always perfect. But there are other options to get rid of slash if the city or the water board want to go that way at that point. It's going to be more expensive. There's machines now that kind of, I don't know much about them. There's like a carbonizer deal where you can load all the slash in that and it burns it at a high heat and it basically just comes out and, kind of chips or mulch at that point. So that's an option, or chipping's another option, but all these options and not, if you're not going to burn are going to be more expensive. It's just the way it is. But we can do them, but at a higher cost.
Roughly what percentage of a higher cost?
150% more, pretty easily. 200% more, yeah.
Yeah, that
burning's
pretty
definitely
hefty lows.
Yeah, it's a big jump if you don't burn.
Yeah, and is that mostly due to the labor for running that operation, or is it the equipment costs?
It's labor and equipment. So if you're in a chip
Gotcha.
or you're going to kind of mulch, you got to get all the piles kind of into one spot where you can get that machine. Because when you burn, we got the piles all spread out across the unit. So some way, some guy with equipment's got to kind of centralize those piles for that equipment. And that equipment's not cheap to run too. It's got an hourly cost and rate, and burning, you just send a crew of 10 guys out there, and it's probably takes about 6 hours to burn 40 acres. So it's really efficient, but yeah, I know the smoke isn't always ideal, but
Yeah,
it is quite a bit cheaper. Yeah.
it's just a question, in terms of soil health, like getting some of that material back into the topsoil is something that may be a value added potential. I have no idea. I'm not a forestry scientist, but if there was a strong argument for going that direction for one benefit or the other, for the harvestable lands, maybe the water board, the city, tribes could go in on a piece of equipment together and manage this forest in a totally different way. That would be something I would be interested in talking about. But if it's a non-starter because of cost, that's a thing. But it's a question that's on my mind.
So Nicole or Jennifer, can you break down the decision that's going to come before us?
We're not necessarily asking in the future for a decision. What is kind of going to grow from this is maybe some additional conversations on how we are going to manage our timber going forward, how we're going to modify our spending habits that are going to maybe shift away from reliance upon this regular revenue that we've had. And that's going to inform us as we walk into the budget this year and in future years as well. We do have some sales. I think 2024 is going to close out maybe soon, and maybe we're looking at a 2025. And so how we're going to think about using those dollars. Do we set aside some money so we have a thinning account? I think there's some more stuff to kind of, but I think we need to understand what those opportunities look like first.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? James, thank you. That was great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Captain Schaefer, introduction of our new codes compliance officer.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you for this opportunity for me and the police department to introduce you to our newest codes enforcement officer, Juliet Davidson. I think we can all agree that a healthy municipal code and codes enforcement is really critical to a thriving and vibrant city. You got to have that. So with that in mind, and with a little history in mind, several years ago, the codes enforcement officer was with the police department. Lisa McGill was our last codes enforcement officer that we had. That was sat under the police department. And we shifted it away, and it went down to the other end of the city, we call it, down to the public works area of the city. And it made sense at the time to do that. But, as we looked at this over the recent past, and I know the chief and Jennifer had talked about this and really what we desired out of the position, and probably our ability as police officers and police administration really to work with that position and maybe give some different type of support to the position that we thought would be advantageous. We decided to bring the position back under the police department, which kind of brings us forward to this. We gave much thought into who would be the right person for a codes enforcement officer, and really a face of the city. Much like our officers and our firefighters end up being faces, codes enforcement is a very important face for the city. And so we knew that we had to select the right person. There were a couple things that we had in mind. One, someone who had to be super organized, someone who really has the ability to take a program that's really coming, although it's been around in some capacity for some time, really kind of an infancy stage back at the police department. We really wanted to define the scope of the position. They had to be a great communicator and really a desire to find a solution or a resolution with the citizens that they're encountering. And really, you got to be able to work with folks. The enforcement part, but also the what's the best way to get to this resolution and really not anger the citizenry. And with that in mind, we found through our selection process, Juliet. We truly believe that we have found the right fit for this position. She is all of those things and much, much more. I'm going to give her an opportunity, so you don't have to listen to me, talk about her position. But I do want to say that we were very mindful in a few things as we brought this position back over. First was the uniform. We felt it was important that she be in a uniform to really have the ability to present some form of authority. Because in the end, we have to tell people, in some form or fashion, how their property needs to be maintained, or what are their vehicles or things of that nature. So certainly wanted it a solid uniform. We did a lot of research through other municipalities, and really looking back historically, kind of the uniform that Lisa used to wear. Vehicle, we thought that was important as well, and we've taken one of our former vehicles that was just plain, and we've striped it and stickered it, and really, again, think it does a good job of displaying that authority and professionalism. And then training. We have kind of gone through this together a little bit. I'm not codes enforcement is not my realm of expertise, but we're trying to learn together. And the chief was very mindful, and he got on the phone with a couple other municipalities that we thought are doing a really good job in their codes enforcement, one being Medford. And we sent Juliet down to Medford for a couple days last week. She worked with their livability team because we really think she's going to work closely with our community resource officer once they're back into their position. And also their codes enforcement team. Obviously, that was a huge part of it. And we believe she got some really good training out of that. And we have plans to also send her to Newport, and we may go with another city as well if we're impressed with their codes enforcement. And then also we put her through our in-house training. She was taser certified. She was pepper spray certified. She really liked the pepper spray. You can ask her about that. That's always a lot of fun. But we wanted to give her the tools to be safe out there. We certainly want to give her that opportunity. And also, she's done some defensive tactics even, and it really has done a great job assimilating into our culture down here. And she's a great communicator. She's always at briefings and telling everybody what she's got going on. So with that in mind, I'd like her to introduce herself a little bit and tell you what she's got going on.
Thank you so much, everyone, for this opportunity to come and meet with you guys tonight. I want to thank Captain Schaefer and Chief Chapnar for their support. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here, not just with you, but with the city of Coos Bay as a whole. I've had some other very fantastic jobs that I loved very deeply and worked on some dynamic teams, but I have to say, and they're not paying me to say this, I've not seen such a dynamic, tight-knit group that I've seen here in the police department and then in City Hall as well. On the other side of the building, everybody truthfully has been very supportive of me, my position, helping me understand where to find the office that I need to speak to the person that has the answers that I need. And everyone has been just a phenomenal support, especially my leadership in the PD. Captain Schaefer kind of talked about the communication, bridging those communications and why they wanted this position to be with the police department. And now, having been there, it's been about 10 weeks. I started on December the 15th, so a short time, but 10 weeks. I've got my feet under me, at least. They set me up with some fantastic training, some phenomenal equipment, but the leadership genuinely has been excellent. Anything that I pretty much need, if they don't know, they're helping me find the answers. They're sending me to the places, so that I can see how they're doing it, and, so that we can really take this opportunity, the chief's vision and, Captain Schaefer's, leadership to help us design a program that is specific and accessible for Coos Bay. I've lived here all my life within the county, North Bend, Coos Bay, Coquille. This is our home. And I approach every conversation with the citizens with that in mind. Yes, my desk, in theory, is supposed to be kind of a last desk. It's supposed to be enforcement and compliance. However, because someone hadn't been formally seated in this position for a significant period of time, there's a lot of little things that I'm easily able to kind of clean up. Whether or not we decide to have me always doing, those, what I would consider like, hey, pick up a cart because I'm already on that corner. Whether we decide to have me doing those things or not, the ability to suss that out, where am I needed? How is this position useful? Where are we getting that most effectiveness out of my time? Has been fantastic, and I'm super thankful for that opportunity. It has been wonderful. I did want to briefly talk about a couple of things that I think you guys might find value in. And in future, if you decide to have me come and give you another update on what things are happening in codes, I am curious to know what those things might be so that I can start tracking them. Just from a program side, I'd like to kind of take a line in the sand of where it was at and what we're looking at, what would be helpful to you in making your decisions moving forward, and what you'd like to see from me and what data we'd like to keep track of. Because at this time, I don't have a lot of information on that. So I'm just presenting you with what I think you might like. Specifically, what I would like to talk to you about is everybody is aware, I'm assuming, about community blight. And that keyword, it's, and we have it here as well. I'm learning, so keep that in mind. I'm getting on board with all the research across the country. But When I came on, there wasn't a list of these are vacant homes that I could put my fingers on. So I had to go digging a little bit. There was no one in my office to help me find that information. I was able to find some data from 16, 17, and 18 about at that time these houses had these problems and here's their address and this is what we had going on. And so I took that list and started kind of doing inspections in our different districts. And going through and saying, yes, that information is confirmed, or on the flip side, no, it's habitated now, and there's a fantastic family in there with no codes violations, and I'm very happy and happily surprised to present, I'm calling those rehabbed houses. From this list, there was about 75 on the list, and from that list, 21 of those I found to be rehabbed. That is an indication, according to the research that I've done, that occupied residences, it's a positive finding and an indicator that the community is slowly regaining those rentals, finding places for incoming folks to live when they bring their business to us or for employment is a big deal. And I'm finding that those homes are being repaired and put back out on the market. So I thought that you'd be interested in that. 21 might not sound like a large number, but when you have multiple homes on the same block that are vacant and occupied by non-residents, it can bring the whole neighborhood kind of down to a point. And so putting new families in there, I was encouraged by that. More data is needed to fully reflect whether the decrease is a trend. But I'm going to be tracking that for you guys. But I think it is a positive indication. I'm very thankful for the training that I've received, for the opportunity to go to Medford and to see how things are happening over there. As you well know, they had a major difficulty. I think they call it the Greenway up against their water there. And Grants Pass was also involved in that to a degree. They've done some amazing things with some very hard work, with some significant support from the community and their council and funding. Because of their size, we can't implement those type of programs, but it's something to shoot for. And so their systems, their software, some of their forms, I'm not stealing, but I was borrowing all of those, met some wonderful people, and they'll be assets moving forward. Really happy to have been there. I went with Livability Team one day and then the codes the second day. Got to see municipal court, got to see how citations come through the court cycle, how their officers carry themselves in the field. It was extremely beneficial, and I'm very thankful for that, so thank you. Looking forward to Newport, like Captain Schaefer had mentioned, because I want to, and they suggested it, and I completely agree. I would like to see a smaller coastal community. How are they doing it? Something that's more aligned to like us, demographically. And so I'm excited about that. We don't have it on the books yet, but I think we will very soon. I'm also going to be going to a conference in April for just Oregon codes, so make some more connections, and I'm excited about that as well. Actively open cases right now, well, this was as of the 23rd. I opened some today, but 31 cases that are actively open in one degree or another that I'm working. Closed cases, so these are things that I have opened, handled, and resolved and documented. That's 28. Again, that might not seem like a lot, but you keep in mind that these are cases that it's real easy, open, close, please trim your hedge, to full abatement. We've kind of, I'm slowly working my way through those and navigating it. We talked about the 21 rehab houses, and then properties currently on the list. We talked about that number as well. Thank you for the opportunity. Does anybody have any questions for me before I step off of here and out of your meeting? Okay.
That was awesome.
Thank you so
Welcome
much.
to the city of Coos
Thank
Bay.
you.
We're really happy to have you.
Thank
That was
you.
great. We look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Nice hire. Yes. Okay, next we're going to hear one of my favorites, presentation from Chief Chopinor on our annual update from the Coos Bay Police Department.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'll come and do it from the podium. I can face you that way. And I think Christine is going to pull it up, put it up on the screen as well as for online. But while she's doing that, I'll just say thank you for allowing me to come tonight and provide you with a brief presentation. And something we've started doing the last few years, and I think it's really beneficial. It's an opportunity for us to just kind of, talk about our department, share some information, but also, just review our calls for service and just some crime stats, and then hopefully answer some questions for you guys if you have any as well. And so I'll just kind of, you already have it up there. Perfect. So, yeah, we're going to I'm going to talk about Coos Bay Police Department and North Coos 911. And like most organizations or departments, they have mission statements, and we do as well. And so first thing I'd like to just start off is, this is our mission statement. It's to efficiently provide quality law enforcement services to our community by promoting a safe environment through a police-citizen partnership with an emphasis on mutual trust, integrity, fairness, and professionalism. And we really, we value our mission statement. We believe, we've looked at it over the years. We've said, is it too long? Should we shorten it up? Does it cover what we're really trying to accomplish? But we always come back that this mission actually is exactly what Coos Bay Police Department is about. And so we reflect on our mission statement a lot, and we have it hanging up in our department in a couple different locations. And I really think it just sums up what we do as a police department and a dispatch center. One of the things we do as a department every year, we've done for the last 4 or 5 years, we have an annual department meeting, and we generally do that in the end of January, beginning of February of the following year. And we utilize that time to meet as a department. It's pretty special time for us because we actually even get other agencies to come in and handle our calls for service for our patrol. And we have some retired dispatchers or dispatchers that are no longer with us, but come back and do some contract dispatching for us. And we bring them in to also help relieve our dispatchers off the desk. And so we really come into this room and we fill it up, and we try to get everybody, we make it an opportunity for everybody to be a part of that meeting. And so it's really kind of unique, very special, especially in a business that is 24/7. And the calls never stop. And so, but we feel like it's extremely important. It's an opportunity for us all to kind of get in the room together. We leave all our rank at the door. Everybody is, just an employee of the police department or the dispatch center, and we come in and we have an opportunity to just meet and talk. We talk about, we do have an agenda. It is productive, but we do talk about like our previous year. We talk about some crime stats. We look at what was accomplished, what kind of calls for service we handled. And then we always look at some future goals for that year that we are actually sitting in. And we identify some things that we want to accomplish. And we at that point too, we also generally I'll provide some type of vision for that upcoming year. And so, great opportunity, and well accepted, and we just it's a great moment. But so for this year, what my vision kind of was for the department was, I'll push it up there if you wouldn't mind just changing it. It's simple. It's one of the simplest visions I think we've put out there as a department. It's making a difference. And I really kind of sat on that for a little bit and thought, what does that mean to me, and how do we really want to take this and adopt this mission and move forward as a department? And it's very simple, but it means a lot. It is really truly making a difference. And how I describe that to our team is, you're making a difference in everything you do. It doesn't really matter if it's a call for service, if it's a lobby contact, if it's a phone call, if it's helping somebody doing something that is not even related to your job. You're still making a difference. You're making a difference in your community. You're making a difference with that person you're having that contact with. And so I said it's not just, it's making a difference in every moment in time. it's not just a single call for service, it's actually a mindset. And so we're really adopting that as a department. I think we've been making a difference, but we're really focusing on that this year moving forward. Everything we do is it's got to make a difference in our community. And so we're really driving that home. I think it was really well accepted, and I think it really has charged the team to go out there and do just that, make a difference. We have 4 core values that we've adopted, and we really adhere to these values. It's honor, integrity, excellence, and teamwork. And I have them hung up in the administrative area of our department. Anybody that comes in to talk with us, we have them up on the wall, and it's part of our organization, and it's part of what we are, and it's what helps us keep our vision and then also maintain our mission and move towards our mission. And so that's a little bit about us and what we, kind of how we structure our department and how we kind of set charge to what we're going to do that upcoming year or even in the future. And so with that, I will just kind of provide you a little bit of, and this is hard to see, and I did make copies for you guys so you could follow along, but this is our organizational chart. This is what it kind of looks like in terms of how we are laid out from an organizational chart perspective. I will point out I already have an error in this chart, and you guys met Juliet tonight, and so Juliet now will be added under the administrative captain. So we'll be adding another box to that, but that position will sit under at this point Captain Mike Schaefer. And so that's kind of how we look, again, from an organizational chart. Kind of drilling down a little deeper into that and what makes the department and the 911 center is I've kind of got it broke down. So on the sworn side of the house, we have 24 sworn police officers, and that is 1 chief, 2 captains. We have 4 police sergeants. They're patrol sergeants, and they oversee the 12 patrol officers. Now, I need to back up. I need to say this is when we are fully staffed, and we're always striving to be fully staffed, but I can tell you that we're not always fully staffed. And so this is like perfect world. This is where we've got all of our folks hired and trained, and so we'd have 12 patrol officers partnered up with the 4 police sergeants. So essentially we run 4 four-person teams. We have 3 detectives, again, in a perfect world. We have 1 community resource officer, 1 school resource officer, and we actually only have a quarter-time evidence tech at this point. We have 1 records supervisor and 2 records clerks. And we now have a code compliance officer. We generally have 2 to 3 disabled parking enforcement volunteers. That's something they volunteer their time to run around and enforce the laws pertaining to disabled parking. Outstanding folks, and it's majority of a education program, and we've partnered up with North Bend as well, and so they'll go around to Coos Bay and North Bend area and provide those services. And we have 1 chaplain. Normally we have police reserves, and we are in the process of trying to recruit for police reserve officers, but at this time we do not have any police reserves. We've hired them all, and so we are in the process of recruiting. And we have 1 police chaplain who is outstanding and just an amazing person, and is just spends an incredible amount of time at the police department just bonding with the officers and dispatchers, and is just always there and ready for a call out, and we have a hard message to deliver. That chaplain's there for us and assists us in all of some of the difficult tasks that we have to do. So and then we move over to kind of the certified side of the house, and that's the dispatchers. And we have 1 telecommunicator, communication administrator, that's Tessa Cupp, and I know you guys have met Tessa before. Outstanding. She's doing an outstanding job. And we have 2 911 dispatch supervisors and 17 911 dispatchers. And We are in the process of hiring, or we will be hiring for one more position. We do anticipate, and this is part of that forecasting and succession planning that we try to accomplish, is we're forecasting some retirements. And so we want to always try to be ahead of that as much as we can, because we're usually down positions as it is. And so we want to get ahead of that curve. So what makes the police department, the 911 center, is about 52 people. It really depends on how many reserves we have. That number can go up to 55, but we're about 52 to 55 people over at the police department. So let's get into reflecting 2025. And I made this slide. This is a page that is a quick reference if you had questions, or you just wanted to refer to a certain crime or something that caught your attention. So this is kind of just the bullet slide. It reflects on 2025, but we are going to actually kind of drill down a little bit deeper into this and what these numbers mean in relation to previous years. But reflection on 2025, we handled about 31,088 cases or calls for service for Coos Bay, and this is just Coos Bay. Obviously, we dispatch for all, and we're going to look at the dispatch numbers, but this is just Coos Bay calls. We had 3,421 case numbers, 1,197 arrests and referrals, 123 criminal citations. We conducted 2,806 traffic stops. We made 143 DUI arrests. That number is pretty staggering. We had 1,592 violation citations, 189 criminal trespass, 100 criminal mischiefs, 406 thefts, 65 burglaries, 30 stolen vehicles, 175 assaults, and those assaults range from assault all the way from a harassment, which is offensive physical contact, all the way up to an assault 1. Which is a major person crime. And so 175 of those. We had 9 domestic assaults, 23 sex-related crimes. We conducted 2,482 patrol checks. We wrote over 60 search warrants. We assisted other agencies over 75 times. We had 4 major crimes team call out, where those are generally homicides or major crimes. 4 crash team call-outs. Those are generally fatalities or something of that serious. We had 25 responses from our emergency response team, which is a multi-agency SWAT team. It's our local SWAT team. We have 3 members of that team at the Coos Bay Police Department, and then it's also obviously made up of other officers from other agencies. They had a goal that they were actually on non-deployment status for a little bit as they were building their team, their numbers back up, and getting their training under control and within the guidelines that is recommended for a SWAT team. And they accomplished that goal, and then they became deployment ready. And they have really just, you'll see when we move forward on a couple slides, they have really just been used, and they're turning into a well-organized team. So we're really happy to see that. We addressed 522 camping violations. Dispatch. Now, this number, we're still working out we have a program called ECATS, and it grabs all the phone calls that come into our center, and it produces the number that you see here. 128,729 calls came through our 911 center. We believe that number is really low, because if you took what we had, and you'll look at a slide here in the future, what we had before we merged all the centers together, we were running around 90,000, and we had anticipated around the 200,000, maybe 180,000 calls for service. And so we're still kind of just working out all the kinks of how we're collecting some of the data that, because of the merged centers. So our evidence technician processed over 2,400 pieces of evidence. We had 13 patrol canine deployments and about 4,100 hours of training as a department. So before we move into the last couple slides that I have, and that's where we're really going to kind of look into how do these numbers relate to previous years and what does all this mean, I wanted to just kind of briefly explain a little bit about NIBRS. And what NIBRS is it's a national incident-based reporting system, and it's used by the FBI to collect detailed crime data. It replaced one of their older systems. It was the summary report system. Their intention was to improve some accuracy and transparency. It captures incident level details. It does drill down into like victims, offenders, relationships, locations, weapons, etc. But and it helps law enforcement and policymakers make data-driven decisions for crime prevention and resource allocation. The FBI transitioned from, you might have heard of Uniform Crime Reporting, UCRs. They transitioned from UCRs to NIBRS in 2021, and then they also required all agencies of certain sizes and population to report to NIBRS. Why I bring this up and why I think it's important for this is what we'll see sometimes, like on maybe a social media post or some type of crime data, and we wonder where did they get that crime data. It's oftentimes from NIBRS, and that's a national database. And so my next slide, what I put in here is the question that I get a lot is, why does NIBRS statistics differ so much from like local crime database reports and statistical information that like I'm going to provide to you tonight? And so we could talk about this for hours. I mean, this could draw, but I really just kind of highlighted some of the points of why it's such a difference at times. And I'll give you just a couple examples, but one of the main reasons is different reporting standards. NIBRS follows strict national guidelines set by FBI. There's a hierarchy rule differences. Some of the older systems, when they were using UCRs, there was a certain way that they categorized crime that's different than local. Data submission timing, that's one of the biggest things. Generally, NIBRS is running a year or 2 years behind, where what I'm going to provide to you tonight and what I've provided already is real live time. I mean, it's true data from our area, and it's real, it's within the 25 time frame. So, and then data cleaning and validation. FBI reviews the standardized submitted data, which can result in reclassification or even removal. And I think that one and the last one that I brought up is jurisdictional coverage. Not all agencies submit full NIBRS data consistently, leading to differences between local totals and federal reports. Those are probably the two main reasons why you're going to see a lot of like just differing types of data reports. And I'll give you a couple examples. So NIBRS then is a national. Then Oregon now also has what they call O-NIBRS, which is Oregon NIBRS. We are to report to Oregon NIBRS, and then national NIBRS actually pulls the information from what Oregon reports, and then they put it in their national database. So we have a state database and a national database. In like NIBRS, if we report, so all of our data is based off of ORS or Oregon Revised Statutes. They're actual crimes that we're logging and we are keeping stats on. When it goes into the national database, sometimes those will now get lumped together and they'll get changed under a national type of crime title. For instance, if you have a department store, I'm going to use Walmart as an example. Walmart's a big box store. There's a lot of people coming and going, and they have a lot of calls for service. And so if we go there and we arrest somebody for a theft, and in the process of us processing that person, we realize that they also have been previously trespassed from that location. What that person more likely than not would be charged with is a theft and criminal trespass. When we report that to NIBRS, they will actually take that, and because they've been previously trespassed, they entered a dwelling or a building with an intent to commit a theft, whether they committed it or not, the intent to commit a theft. That's actually the definition of a burglary. So it gets transferred over to NIBRS as a burglary. So stateside, it would be two independent crimes that we would categorize differently, and in NIBRs it gets lumped together. The same happens for like identity theft. It all gets categorized as fraud. So you can kind of see the differences. And I bring all that. I thought it was worth spending a couple minutes on that just so that way we can kind of sometimes understand, well, why does, we saw this post that said, this about Coos Bay or this about the crime stats, which is completely inconsistent to what I just heard the chief provide us the other day. And so that's sometimes the discrepancy. Neither are wrong per se, but they're completely different. It's not an apples for apples comparison. So now let's move into how these 2025 stats compare to previous years and what do they really mean. So again, I said the total calls for service is 31,088. If you look at this number with the percents, all I did was it's not over the full 5 years. I just compared that number to the previous year. But I did provide you with the numbers of all 5 years so you can kind of see the trend. It looks like we decreased on calls for service about 7.9%. Case numbers, we had 3,427 case numbers, which is a slight decline of about 9.4%. Our total arrests are down about 9.5% from 1,200 to 1,092. And the DA referrals is we actually increased on our referrals to the DA's office. Went from 75 to 105. Criminal citations, we were sitting at about 123, which is a decline of about 26%. Traffic stops. We had a decline in traffic stops, and that's something that is a little more, it's not that we didn't have probably the violators out there and the need for the traffic stop, whether it's a citation or education. It really sometimes some of these numbers are based off of your staffing levels too. One of our officers that does a lot of traffic enforcement also is our motorcycle officer. He was injured and out for an extended period of time. So some of those traffic stops we just weren't able to do because at one point we had 6 members from our police department out. We had 3 retirements, 1 officer left us, and we had 2 injuries. So we had 6 down. Okay, moving along. Our traffic crashes. I looked at this, and why did we go up 45%? We went from 188 traffic crashes to 273. I don't know. We'll have to watch that trend. I mean, that is the highest it's been in 5 years. I was telling the captains, I think maybe it's just everybody's in a hurry, and everybody's got the next meeting they got to get to, or this or that, and everybody's life is just moving pretty fast to where we're maybe not slowing down like we should and really paying attention to our driving because we did see an increase in crashes.
We didn't have that guy writing citations.
Yeah, maybe we need to get, the DUI IRS, so in 2023, I didn't really necessarily challenge, but I looked at our DUI IRS and I said 75 arrests. I mean, that's a lot, especially for a crime that's so avoidable. But I felt like there was probably more out there, and so the officers, I basically said, we need to make sure that we're taking the impaired drivers off the road if that number is increased, and there was 104. This year, 143. I just, I don't know what's causing that, but it's a 37.5% increase in DUI arrests, and so hopefully we can figure that out and get that number to come back down. Violation citations, 1,592. It's down. Obviously, less traffic stops, probably less violation citations. Criminal trespass. So we're down on the criminal trespass, and I want to say a lot of this might also contribute to, although we could all agree our jail's probably nowhere where we would like it to be as a county, and I know the sheriff would love to open up additional capacity and bed space and the ability to have a more functioning jail. There's no doubt about that. 49 beds is not enough beds for our county. But I will say that there is still a booking process. And what we are seeing is we are not seeing as much of the repeat offenders within the same day or, there was times where multiple times we were dealing with the same person and issuing citations or bringing them to the station and citing and releasing them because that was our only option. So the jail is such a necessity for our community and to kind of help combat some of the crime. You can also see the criminal mischief the same. Those are kind of those low level misdemeanor crimes that often affect livability, affect businesses within our community, and those are the things that I'm really happy to see a downturn on because those are the things that really impact everybody. And a lot of that was just due to the repeat offenders that we were dealing with, and so. That's one theory. We could probably give you several others, but I know that to be true. When our jail is not functioning, we can see our numbers increase. It's just the way it is. Yes.
Just a question. For a county our size and the population we have here, what capacity should that jail be operating at?
Well, I don't operate a jail. I don't run a jail,
Right.
but I will say, based off of my experience here, I do remember when we had over 200 beds open in an operation, and it was a well-functioning. But I really think, obviously, money dictates, and it costs a lot to run that jail. But we shouldn't be under 100 beds. I would say 150 beds. It would be probably a little more adequate for our size. But again, and I'm not trying to speak for the sheriff. I don't know what he would say. I'm sure he would have a great answer for that. But 49 beds is that's very, very small.
And then a follow-up question. When you look at some of these numbers, total calls, case numbers, criminal trespass, criminal mischief, that have seen quite significant reductions. Are you seeing fewer connections when you talk about repeat offenders that you're not having to contact with? Are we talking about an unhoused population or transient folks in the area, or can you track it at all?
It's hard to track with any degree of certainty on a number. So I would be really hesitant to say, oh yeah, we've seen a 10% reduction or, that, to try to answer that question. But what I will say is, we are seeing less, obviously, of those types of crimes. And the criminal trespass crimes a lot of times were the unhoused folks. And I think what they are also realizing is there is, first of all, there is consequences for behavior, but also there's other avenues, other resources within the community that they can turn to. So we're not seeing as much. It's still, those numbers are still 189 times we've had criminal trespass. But if you look at the previous years, in 2022, we had 328 and we're down to 189. I think we're moving in the right direction.
Can you track it by area of the city?
I probably could. We haven't. We do have districts that we respond to. I would say, your criminal trespass and your criminal mischief, the larger response area is going to be the downtown, what we call District 1, because that's the majority of the businesses. And that's the majority of the businesses that are going to be calling in during the daytime hours for folks that have been trespassed and now back on their property. Fred Meyer, Walmart, Safeway, some of the larger stores that have loss prevention and that can monitor some of the folks that are returning back to the property that they shouldn't be. So I don't know if that answered your question, but okay. Thefts, we had 406. It's down, which is good. Burglaries. That number's down 20% from 82 to 65, which is great. That's our community. Their houses getting broken into, or their shops. Stolen vehicles, 51% decrease from 62 to 30. That's great. Our assaults went up. Crime stats are weird. Why? Why did our assaults go up? I'm not real sure, but they went up 62% from 108 to 175. Domestic assaults, they stayed about the same. We went from 10 to 9, and those kind of bounced around. But overall, we have seen a reduction in that even. Our sex crimes have went down 23, down 41%. And our patrol checks, this is something that I've really been hitting hard on, and we really want our officers out there, and we want them checking areas and checking the parks and the trails and stuff. You will see a reduction. I will say that is truly due, not with an excuse, but that is truly due to the reduction in staff. And like I said, at one point we had 6 officers that were out, and they're going to be handling other things and not be able to get out as much on the patrol checks. I'm still pretty proud of that number. It's still significantly increased from 2021. We wrote over 60 search warrants. This category is getting harder and harder to track because almost everything nowadays requires a search warrant. So, example, if we arrest a DUI and we have to write a search warrant for blood or urine, that crime's still going to be classified as a DUI, and so we sometimes are hard to track that search warrant. The same might apply for a drug case that we do a search warrant on, but we've charged somebody with possession of controlled substance, and so there's a PCS charge. It doesn't necessarily capture the search warrant. So we're looking at ways to maybe capture that, because a search warrant is a huge amount of time that involves the officers, and we have to write those so often these days. Our overdose rate, down 51%. I'd like to say that was because we're not seeing as much, fentanyl use and opioid use in our community. I don't think I'm confident enough to say that at this point. I will say there's a couple things that I believe have contributed to that. I think the accessibility to Narcan and the education that has been put out about Narcan has really, I think, started to take effect and reduce those numbers. Maybe they're a little safer at their drug use. And then also, I think the reform of ballot measure 110 had a huge effect. The 4002, I think, has really helped reduce some of those numbers. Again, there is some consequences. There is some options too for treatment, but there's also some consequences if you choose not to receive some treatment as well. So I think we've seen those numbers come down.
Do you think we could also attribute that just to the large amount of burn funding that our substance use disorder agencies have received in the work that they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Major crimes, we had 4, like I discussed, and crash teams 4, and our ERT team that I had mentioned, we had 25 deployments. I can't wait to be able to provide you CRO contacts again, and we are working hard to get that position back up. I'm hoping early spring we will have our CRO back up and running. And one last thing, you don't have this in your packet. I just threw this up there. It's my own slide, but I thought you might be interested. So a year ago, we implemented an online reporting system called PD Connect. And then a few months after that, we actually, citywide, we all got on board with this online reporting, and we categorized different types of offenses that you'd be reporting, even sidewalk to code violations to thefts and whatnot. So it kind of reaches a wide spread, and it's been well received. There's obviously always challenges to certain new programs you implement, but I thought you guys might like to know. So over the course of last year, from January to December, we had 396 online reports. And so obviously it's taken off and people are utilizing it. And our number one report that people utilize this online system for was crime tips. And so some of those crime tips have led to some good cases. Some of them are not. But and then we've had 39 abandoned vehicles. We've had 37 drug tips. We've had 22 damaged property. Some identity theft's been reported, theft of bicycles. We had 59 just general theft calls that came in through the system. And what we do is, just so everyone knows that's listening online too, we treat those like, they're a regular call for service. So what we end up doing is we convert those over to a log number. And if there's follow-up that needs to be done, we assign it out to an officer, and they'll do the follow-up. Or if it's codes, we'll assign it to codes. Or Public Works has been outstanding in participating in this. If it's a Public Works matter, they're handling it. And so I think it's really working well, and it's kind of meeting kind of maybe all of our needs and the community needs. And so, but they are looked into. Each one of them is reviewed, and there's notes and there's response that go back to the reporting party. And so it's a pretty good system, and we're pretty happy with it. And with that, I think I've taken enough of your guys' time tonight, but I'm happy to answer questions.
I have just a quick question. How many current vacant positions do you have open?
I have 2 police officer positions open, and I have 2 dispatch positions open. However, one of the dispatch positions, we have an applicant that is almost completely through the process and looks like we have, working on a hiring date and moving forward on that. So that'll put me down with 1 dispatcher and 2 police. So, and we have concluded our hiring process for police, and we have 2 applicants that we're going to be moving into background. So, but I think I've mentioned to you guys before, generally that process from the time we post for a hiring position to the time we actually have that officer seated in the car on their own and handling calls for service is 9 to 12 months. So we're always feel like we're kind of playing catch up.
Thank you. Other questions from anyone? Yes, Jacob?
Yeah, I've got 2. One is kind of a general question on like PSA billboards or like signs. I know in other cities I've seen like don't drink and drive signs either produced by the city or if they were billboards. And I'm curious if we've ever done that as a city.
So most of those signs, most of the time is through ODOT or Oregon Impact. And we are obviously, that's who also provides us with a lot of our traffic grants, DUII grants. And so we are always in direct communication with Oregon Impact. I will actually ask one of the folks that work there. She actually comes to our chiefs meeting monthly. She doesn't make it all the time, but a lot of times she'll make it. And I'll ask if we can get something like that. But I think those are generally provided through Oregon Impact. The other thing that we're working on is we are working on trying to get some trailers that we can actually put different messages, speed trailers, and that will actually have messaging capabilities where if we have a special event, we can program it to say special event, or if we want to do a DUII campaign, we can put those that signage out. So we're working on that.
Okay, cool. And then the other question I had was on data. One of the things you mentioned was that the like the local data versus the NIBRs or the NIBRs, right now it's not very easy to make it an apples to apples comparison, and I'm curious, are there initiatives in the works that would make it easier to compare those data sets, or is that sort of...
Well, I think there's 2 different missions. So the national database, basically, they have a mission, and they're trying to, again, track certain types of offenses and very specific type of, details that they're wanting. I don't know if the national database will ever align with like the state database or our local database, because we're going to apply Oregon revised statutes and crimes that we are actually going to charge a person with. And when it goes to the national database, we all know that different states have different laws and they categorize things differently. We call it theft, some call it larceny, and there's those. And so as a national database, you're trying to figure out how you're going to capitalize and capture all of everybody's stats and put it into something that makes sense, that helps lawmakers and decision makers or allocate resources. And so I don't know. I don't think either one of them are wrong. I just really think that they have different missions, and I don't know if we'll ever get them to completely align.
Thank you.
Councilor Kimler?
I just wanted to thank you for the information. I appreciate the breakouts by year. It gives us a good thing that we can talk about. Also appreciate the online reporting and the information that you provided on that. I have had a number of conversations with people. They're like, I don't want to just, I feel like I'm being a nuisance contacting through the phone line. And I said, well, then use the online reporting. And for a variety, there was some issues probably that Jennifer had to deal with. But I appreciate that. I think we had talked about it years ago, and I appreciate that being implemented. But again, it's good to see where there's work to do, but also it's tremendous the work that's already been done. And you do it 24/7, and we appreciate, or I appreciate all the work that y'all are doing.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? Lucinda?
I too agree with Stephanie with just all the great work that is being done. And was it 128,000 calls through the dispatch center? Is that right, Chief?
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah, that is just phenomenal. And I can tell you firsthand, I've called a few times this last year, and the wait time, the time that the officer has been to the house is so quick, and I've been so incredibly impressed. So my sincere appreciation and thanks for all the work your department does with limited resources. I know we're still trying to get completely have an entire department with all of the positions filled, but I'm just so grateful to your leadership and the team's leadership for all the work that they do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well said. President DeNovo, been a great. I've been a few of those calls too. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to hear from Chief Atkins to review a proposed ordinance establishing and implementing a program to change mitigation rates for deployment of emergency and non-emergency services by the fire department that are rendered by or for the Coos Fire Department.
Thank you. Good evening. So before we get into the discussion of the mitigation rate ordinance proposal, I was going to give you a quick overview of 2025 for the fire department, and then kind of a looking ahead for 2026. They'll kind of tie into why we're proposing this. So I did provide with you all with a 2025 annual report that goes a lot more in depth, but for this discussion, I'm just really abbreviating it for you. So in 2025, we did have new staffing, so we are full with Chief Anderson's retirement, my promotion to fire chief. That left my position vacant, so we hired Justin Farron, who is the fire chief from Coquille Fire Department, came to us in June. And then we also had a few other openings that came up, so we were able to hire 3 additional firefighter engineers to fill those spots. One of them was Ashton Galloway, who had previously started in January with us as one of our apprentices. So already being able to show the success of that apprentice program. Here's a picture of the apprentices we currently have. That is a 2-year program that allows people to get into the fire service through, without reducing some of the barriers that they may otherwise face. So again, it was a $1.6 million grant that we were awarded through BOLI in partnership with the Oregon State Firefighters Council. And we have renewed that, applied for renewing for 3 more positions for this current cycle, which would hopefully go into effect and where we could bring them on in October. So we would have a little bit of an overlap from the time that this 2-year cycle goes away, and then the new ones would start. So we shouldn't see any real reduction in services for that. So our call response is quite a bit different than what happens at the police department, but we had a total of 4,033 calls for service last year. Of that, 2,739 were medical related, 818 were public assist. So that's anywhere from a lift assist to agency assist, like assisting the police department or some other agency. 321 fire-related calls. So that includes the 29 structure fires we had, or fires inside of buildings. Also includes medical or vehicle fires, mutual aid fires to other fire districts and departments, primarily Charleston, Central Coos, which is Millington and Sumner, and North Bend. And then 155 that are considered hazardous conditions. So that could be a true hazardous material call, like release or spill of fluids, or it could be down power lines or something that is not typically categorized in one of the other locations of fire. So this is a call trend for us. This starts from 2000. In 2000, we had 1,494 calls, and then up to every 5 years, we've had increases, and that's been fairly steady. As you can see, from 2010 to 2020, we went from 2,017 calls to 4,020 calls. And then from there, we've been fairly consistent around that 4,000 to 4,400 call mark, ending 2025 with 4,033 calls. So that is down a little bit, but that also reflects a new policy that we started in 2025 that we call Code Charlie. And Code Charlie is what we do to let our dispatch center know that they can clear us from a call that came out where an ambulance is already going to be responding for low acuity calls. So toe pain, or someone that's been sick for a few days, they just want to go to the hospital, or a transport from North Bend Medical Center or one of the clinics or care facilities over to a hospital just for follow-ups. We just don't feel like it's really warranted to send out a fire engine and staff when we do have an ambulance still responding. So patient care is not being neglected. There's still someone responding. It's just not the fire department. So that's 332 calls that are less wear and tear on our vehicles, less wear and tear on our staff, as well as less potential exposures and risks to our staff as well. So for 2026, a couple things that we're pretty proud of. This is also our 135th year of providing service to the community. So Marshfield Fire Department was organized in 1891. And so we are still here today, just under City of Coos Bay, but still been continuously providing service to the citizens. So definitely something we wanted to make sure we note. Another thing that we're really proud of is when council approved a couple months ago for us to be able to purchase the 100-foot platform ladder truck that is at our station now. Anyone's free to come by and take a look at it. If you're really nice, we could always run you up to the top, 94 feet up in the air, inside the bucket. So it's still not quite in service yet. We were originally hoping to have it in service the first part of February, but then when we got here, we started realizing it's a lot bigger. It's 47 feet from the front to the back. So we just want to make sure that all of our staff are adequately trained because it is a very large piece of equipment and also a specialized piece of equipment. So it can be used, but just for very select people currently until the rest of them get trained in how to use it. And that's also 82,000 pounds, which is really more than what most semi-trucks would be driving down the roadway. You may remember that a couple years ago we were awarded a seismic retrofit grant for Eastside Fire Station. Unfortunately, when we went out to bid for that 2 different times, all the estimates or all the bids came in higher than what the architect estimates were. So we ended up turning the grant down, and we reapplied. So that's been done. So we're hopeful that they'll come out, and that should be in the next few months if they award it. So if that's the case, then we should be able to go almost directly to bid because all the groundwork has already been done on the design. So for 2026, with 2025 was really kind of geared towards not rebuilding, but like continuing the foundation we had, redevelopment in our staff, getting our staff numbers back up, getting our apprentice program off the ground. So 2026 is kind of a systems refinement of what we do. So everywhere from our policies and procedures of what we do, and then also expanding Code Charlie. So that was 332 responses that we did not have to go on, but our staff are still very leery of not wanting to go because we've always, when someone calls, we go and help. And so trying to get them more comfortable with that. So this year, I anticipate that number being higher. And so instead of having an 8% reduction in calls, which is what we had in 2025, I'm hopeful that that number is closer to the 10%. So, and then the other thing is the billing recovery, which is the main reason why we're here tonight. So the ordinance would allow us to be able to bill for recovery services for both emergency and non-emergency responses that we go on. And in the original packet you were sent several weeks ago, I believe, that had the ordinance or draft ordinance, and then also an appendix. In the appendix, it listed all the different types of calls. And at the end of the day, what we're asking for is not really to do revenue, but to enhance or recover our expenses we had. And primarily, it's shifting the burden of expense not to the taxpayers who's already paying for our readiness and the stations and equipment and salaries, but to actually who is using our services as much as possible. And so, we're billing, the idea would be we bill insurance first, and then if there was no insurance, or if insurance denied the claim, for residents, we would just close the case, and so they would never see a bill. But for non-residents, people traveling through, commercial businesses coming through, that's where we would bill. And again, if they were non-residents, if they did not get a bill, or if they did not have insurance, then they would seek a bill for that. Anticipated revenue is very conservative, but we would be kind of guesstimating in the $15,000 to $20,000 range per year based on the calls that we've had for 2025, and then what the recovery rate is for the third-party biller that we've not necessarily selected, but that we are really looking at. And then also knowing that not everyone has insurance, so there would be a portion that would not be billed. So,
just confirming the amount you said, $15,000 to $20,000.
Yes, yeah, $15,000 to $20,000. So.
I'm curious about the administration behind that and the administrative load of billing versus the benefit.
We would be trying to utilize a third-party billing company. So majority of the data we already collect already, and they are able to pull that information out and then submit the bills from there. So we would set the parameters of what they would bill for, and then they would be able to bill from that point. So like I said, most of the data is already there for them, so it's just a little bit more data we would have to collect, but that's easy enough for us to do.
And then they would take a percentage or something.
They do. They charge, the one company we were looking at, it's 22%. So, but that's a lot less than us. That's one of the barriers we've had in the past, is we don't have administrative people in the fire department to be able to bill. So that would be a lot more administrative headache for us. Yeah. But locating this third-party billing, that reduces that burden.
Does that eat into that 15 to 20K?
No, that would be the net, would be the 15 to 20. after all that would come out. So, in just last year, we responded to 96 motor vehicle accidents or crashes where we would be able to bill the 29 structure fires. And then we had 52 illegal burns, 25 of which were repeat offenders. And so that's just one small little segment of people that we could bill. A few of those we would actually bill the party directly. So someone that's burning illegally, they were warned the first time, they know the regulations. The idea would be there's no insurance for us to bill, so we would have to bill them directly for that. And what we're looking for is just recovery of the costs. So our time for our staff and equipment to go out, that's what we're looking for. So.
I'm curious, are there other cities near us or in the region that also... There we go.
Yes, sorry, I paused. So here is just a list of a few cities that are similar demographic to us, either in location or type of department, as well as on the top to the right is Tualatin Valley Fire District. They are in the top 3 largest fire districts in the state of Oregon, and they also bill for services. So not necessarily to compare with them, but to show that this is kind of becoming an industry standard, and a lot more agencies are doing this. So
a lot
including,
of them that you have up there, though, are volunteer departments.
or combination. So combination of fire or career and volunteers. But we have similar location here is Charleston, Sumner Millington, which is Central Coos, Green Acres, Myrtle Point just passed resolution or an ordinance last week or last month, whatever, to do the same thing. So it is becoming more and more the norm, just because we all know expenses are outpacing the general fund tax dollars. So and we constantly try looking for grants and other creative ways to stretch our services, but that's kind of at the end of the day, we want to make sure we don't have to reduce our services because of budget limitations. And so we've been very pro sourcing additional revenue streams or cost recoveries. So we've deployed the last couple of years, which has provided a good amount of revenue for the city, which also helps us to pay for things such as our aerial that we just purchased, as well as portions of our last fire truck, some other things.
President Novo?
Yeah, I appreciate the work that you've done on this. I have a few questions. The first question is, an incident happens at the home that you're required to come out for a call. Nothing, you get there and there's nothing that really you needed to do. You just came out for the call. So my question is, there is no insurance to bill in those issues. So what does that look like?
So thank you. So medical calls would not be billed at this time. There's really no other departments in Oregon that are billing for medical calls. The only calls that we would be billing for are the calls where we actually do provide a service. So even in like the appendix, one of the proposals would be to provide bills for a lift assist. So say an elderly person fell down, can't get up. We go out oftentimes, about 600 times last year, to help people up off the ground, get them into a chair. If they're not injured, we leave and we cancel the ambulance. Or vice versa, the ambulance will cancel us if they get there sooner. But there's some that we have that it's the same person calling over and over and over. So at the third time that we would respond to that location in a calendar year, then we would send a bill for $75 to that resident. And initially it's education. We always try to see if there's other people or other arrangements that they can do to be able to get help. But it just becomes a problem. We had one, for instance, that ended a couple years ago, but over a 2-year time period, I think we were there 84 times in 2 years. And it creates a ton of impact to our staff, potential back injuries and everything else. So trying to reduce that as much as possible, but at the same time, recover that cost of us going there. So if that answers your question.
It did. I'll have an opinion about this too. So I can see the direction you're going, and I see a lot of strengths to it. I struggle with the medical piece. I really do. And I feel like 3 strikes and you're out is a little too much. Like with the most recent example you just used, we have an aging community, and so I wouldn't want to put that burden on them, but there is a balance, and I recognize that. The Tualatin Valley Fire District, we're talking about, that's in the burbs, Beaverton, Aloha, Hillsborough, correct?
Correct.
Okay. My question to you is and all of these other fire departments are doing very similar things that you propose in the index. Is that correct?
Correct. In some fashion or another. Not all of them would do all of what we're requesting. Some of them do some, others do others. So it's kind of a mix around the board. And this is just a partial list. Like I said, this was the one company. I asked them if they could provide me a quick list a couple days ago to include, and that's what they sent me. So they have 42 agencies in Oregon that they provide billing services for.
Okay, but the document I'm looking at, the draft billing ordinance, this is ours. This is what you are proposing, and the staff is proposing that we charge. Is that correct?
Not what we charge. I'm not sure if you're seeing the.
Sorry, I'm looking at Exhibit A mitigation rates based on per hour. That's what we're talking about?
That might be. There was 2 different ones that you may have been sent. One was from a different company, and it actually had rates in there. So on the first page, does it say motor vehicle instance, level 1, level 2?
Yep, that's exactly what I'm looking at.
Okay, so that is one billing company's suggested rates. The one that we are looking at really wanting to go to is a true billing for recovery. So it would be actual costs for our vehicles and personnel responding, and by the quarter hour. So it's a lot less than what these rates are.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry I got confused there. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Lucinda, we're just taking a look at an email version that was sent to us a little bit ago.
Yeah.
You were ahead of us.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's what I was looking at, was the email version. So, and looking at those rates. So sorry for the confusion.
Yeah, and I was just going to get to that too. That was one of the things that one of the companies does. I just don't think there's as much oversight because you're just blanket putting a value on there. And so the other company that we are more inclined to use, they suggest we do true billing costs, and it's more received with insurance agencies.
So, and we know 100% that we can charge the insurance company, and the insurance company will pay it. Is there like do they give you any stats like 95% of the time the insurance company will pay the fee?
So their recovery rates are 87% of what they bill for. I don't have statistics on what insurance pays directly.
Okay.
But yeah, we do have legal authority. There's 2 different ORS, 473, 478, I believe. Don't hold me to those. But a couple different statutes that gives us the ability to bill for recovery services. So, and again, we're not trying to bill the individual, so the taxpayer themselves should see very limited impact to this, if any. We are billing the insurance companies, and then if they're non-residents, that's who we're billing. So.
Okay. So that's what I want you to lead with if we talk about this again, It's
Okay.
it's not gonna really impact the citizens. But let me ask you this. I am a visitor to this community. I get in a car accident. The fire department comes out because they have to extinguish a fire, and the fire department then will bill the insurance company. If the insurance company doesn't pay, what are you proposing?
So what would be proposed in that circumstance, someone that's a non-resident, insurance does not pay, then we would send them a bill directly. And if that doesn't happen, then the company we would be using for that third party would go after collections to them.
That's the one place I struggle. As someone who is in the tourism industry, I feel like welcome to our community. But if you get in an accident and your insurance doesn't cover it, we're going to bill you. That's the only place that I find I'm challenged with, Chief.
Okay. The one thing I could say,
$15,000, we're sending a pretty strong message. And to say that, you know, residents are not going to be impacted is, I think, is also a fallacy, because it does affect. It will affect them. I mean, they're already going to be affected because they've had a loss, and now they have one more thing they have to worry about.
yeah, and I would just say to the first comment about out-of-town people, I mean, I could liken it to going to a motel out of town and you pay like transient lodging tax. There might be a little bit of difference there, of course, but I mean, when you come into the area and staying, you are kind of contributing to the community. And it's, again, shifting that from the taxpayer to the user is what we're trying to go for. So,
If I can just clarify, so if I go to McMinnville and I get in a car accident, I would get billed, and we're proposing that if that happened here, it would be the same process.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And I would just kind of add, I think Lakeside could probably be on this list. Historically, I know they used to do the same thing from my old job. We did the accounting there. So in the section of 101 that travels through Lakeside, if you have an accident there and they're responsive to that, they bill out for their service. And some of those bills are, you know, $14,000, $15,000 depending on the size of the accident. So Charleston is going to have the same thing out on their stretch of the roadway that they're responsive to. So it's not intended to necessarily capture costs related to living in this city, but for folks who are coming here and using the services that pull away the services from our community, it's a way to kind of recapture some of that.
And you use Lakeside as an example. They're in a very different situation.
They're absolutely. I just wanted to
like they
share
have
the
zero
kind of
tax base.
Yeah.
So
fair, and I would say, you know, our tax base let's say our base is flat at 7 million. It doesn't cover police and fire, so we get almost to a zero tax base when we're trying to, you know, talk about cost of service. And this isn't to say this is what works for us, but it's just a system that's out there. And so when we look at trying to balance our budget, we're trying to look at as many opportunities that exist that are models that are already there without recreating something. Maybe it doesn't work here, but this is what staff's kind of working on a regular basis. What do we see happening out there? Can we look at something that might work here?
And I would just say, from a person that did billing and collections for years, you know, I think you also have to consider the uncollectible rate and how that impacts us. But again, I think the optics of it are not worth what we think we're going to gain if we collect 100%. And there's going to be a percentage we're not going to collect.
You said 87% was the estimate?
I think
That's what their collection rate is, typically 87%. Yeah. And of course, my numbers were very conservative. I figured roughly, I just did some quick math on the 3 different categories I looked at. It's about $50,000 that would be able to be billed, and that was just a very small fee. So that could be definitely a lot more than that, but I just didn't want to overpromise at all. So 15 to 20,000 I feel is very conservative as far as what would be brought in. But
I do think that there is value in the repeat offender. I'm thinking specifically about the repeat fire example that you provided. Yeah, and the lift assist. I think that those are good examples. But I am curious about the cost benefit ratio here. President DeNovo, you're off mute.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Councillor Stevens. I again will say I appreciate you looking for opportunities. As we all know, costs are continuing to go up, and the taxes aren't covering it. Property taxes aren't. I'm sure we'll have a conversation again about this. I can get behind billing insurance companies. I can't get behind billing, the individual if the insurance company doesn't pay. For someone who has specifically like an accident in this community, or even a citizen who has an accident in this community, I just feel like putting that burden on someone, to Councillor Kilmer's point, for 20,000, 30,000. I don't know if it's worth it. But I appreciate that there are expenses associated with it, and we're trying just to make sure to cover those expenses as best we can. I think it's very responsible. I just don't like the thought of billing someone and then going after, if they don't pay, we send them to collections. I don't like that message at all. Sorry, that was my last comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Okay, we are at the end of our agenda. I'm going to call this meeting to a close. Thank you.
Thank you.